Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter, New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneier, joined as always my co-host Nick Filato. And start clicking this pod. Start clicking the last top 30 visits offense pod. This is the top 30 visits defense pod. Why? Because it matters. Because the Giants have selected 10 players in the last 3 draft classes under this regime who came in for top 30 visits. They don't hide their hand. I heard Jaguars GM, the new kid, Nick, he looks like he's 25 years old. I think he's like 38, talking about how the Jaguars don't do top 30 visits. They don't want to tip their hand, and they believe they've figured out everything they have already in the evaluation process prior to this. The Giants don't operate that way. Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll have made it clear. It is very important to them to get to know these prospects individually and get every last detail out of these guys. And ultimately, a lot of the time, these players are who are selected in the draft. The draft is a week away now, or whenever you're listening to this, less than a week away. And we're going over the top 30 defensive prospect visits. I think we have total now, Nick, between the offensive pod we already did and defense, 23 of the 30. So there's still 7 or 8 missing that haven't been reported. We'll get to them the last week and discuss them in a little bit. But these are players you got to know, because these are the players the Giants may end up drafting. And let's start with their first top 30 visit that we can get to. Abdul Carter, the edge rusher who also played off-ball linebacker for Penn State before edge rushing just for a year. He can line up over the A gap, the B gap. He can drop in coverage. He can bend the edge. I was just watching a game last night against USC, rewatching a cut up of that, because I have this awesome tool now that sadly, Nick, I only found out I have access to through CBS like a week ago. And it's like the best possible film tool you can have. It just has cut ups of like what you want, like all pass rush snaps, all this snaps. And so I was just watching all those pass rush snaps.
Must be nice.
It is nice. And I wish I could give that to you, but I think I might get fired if I do.
I got you.
And I was watching it. Oh my God. Some of the reps he has, like bending that edge. I'm like, this is it, man. Like my brother and I were talking about it because I was watching and I sent him a text and I was like, dude, we haven't had like, Kayvon Thibodeau was drafted to maybe, I guess, be this guy. Brian Burns, I love, but I don't know if he could really ever be this guy. We haven't had a 15+ sack potential guy on this.
I think Burns can do it. I know it sounds probably ridiculous. I don't even know why it does, though. He always hovers around like 9 sacks.
And he was injured.
Right. And he's played on just shit teams. Like the Giants sucked last year, and he was with the Carolina Panthers when they were terrible. Get him with Dexter Lawrence with a good offense. Brian Burns, I think, could be a 15 sack guy.
Possibly, but I think Abdul Carter has more pass rushing up than Brian Burns. And I think it's so obvious when you just filter out and watch these reps. And so the Giants brought him in. I couldn't be more excited if they had him. And my brother's at the point where he now has Carter over wanting him over Hunter on draft night. I still think I'm Hunter over Carter. But man, it is so exciting to watch Carter bend that edge and just the ability that he has. And me thinking about, wow, watching this kid against Dak Prescott. We haven't given Dak Prescott trouble at all, really, in my whole life since Dak Prescott was here, except for that one 2016 game where Janoris Jenkins like locked up Dez Bryant. And then I think about, okay, now we're facing Jaden Daniels. Now we're facing Jalen Hurts. Just move this dude over the A gap and the B gap, and you cannot run. You cannot scramble because he will chase you down. He will close that gap as the spy. So it's just really exciting to think about his potential.
We won't spend too much time on Abdul Carter because we've talked a lot about him throughout this pre-draft process, but I'm right there with you, man. I'm going to be happy if it's Travis Hunter. I'm going to be happy if it's Abdul Carter for all the reasons that we've laid out over the last 2 months or so. Abdul Carter has difference-making ability. He's a blue-chip type of player, somebody who has all-pro potential, and you can use him in a variety of different ways. I don't care that the Giants already have 2 successful edge rushers. You can never have too many, especially ones that are this talented, and Abdul Carter would arguably be the best edge rusher by the end of year 1 if he stays healthy, knocking on wood, and everything goes well, right? So bring this guy into your building, add that to your defense, give Shane Bowen this type of curveball, and opposing offenses will have their hands full with Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Abdul Carter.
Yep, I'm with you. So they brought in Abdul Carter, potential pick at 3. Now we're going to talk about a player who they brought in who's one of the hottest names during this pre-draft cycle after a dominant Senior Bowl, and just given the traits, I think is why he's rising up boards. I think, Nick, this player I'm about to bring up is probably only in play at 34 given the hype, but given his age and lack of production, which I want to get to when we go over him at the collegiate level, despite playing at a small school, which scares me, to be honest. We'll go over that. Maybe 65, but I'm probably looking at 34. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that. It's Darius Alexander, the interior defensive lineman out of Toledo. 24, turning 25, 6'3.5", 305. But my God, is he tooled up. When you watch him, he took over at the Senior Bowl. That's where really people got an idea of what he can be. Explosive jumps, sub 540 at 300 pounds, which is insane. He had a pick six last season, which is watching that pick six, watching a 300-pounder make a pick six in general is insane. Long ass frame, 34-inch arms, 171 10-yard split is insane for a 300-pounder. Tools like this is the draft the tools prospect. And also, this is the wow, I got to see him at a higher level of competition at the Senior Bowl, and he dominated type of guy who moves up draft boards. Where are you at with Alexander? I do want to touch on some of the things that scare me about him too.
If the Giants want Darius Alexander, I think they got to take him at 34. I think it's pie guy. I think he's going to be available at 65, and I would be okay with the Giants selecting him at 34. I get it that he is a little bit older and that the production has been a little shoddy, but there are just few players with this type of length, this type of explosiveness, this type of range, man. Somebody who is 300 plus pounds who can move from the A gap and just get outside the numbers quickly and deliver these massive hits. He's a hustler. What is he about? Let me pull up his weight right now. He is 305, 6'4", 305, and it's 34-inch arms, but with an 82 and 7/8 inch wingspan. So almost an 83-inch wingspan, wide chest type of player. I want somebody who is going to penetrate. Pause. I want somebody who is going to be disruptive, somebody who you can align as a 3 technique opposite of Dexter Lawrence, and you could just send him and he can go. I want somebody who can also anchor down and defend the run. Look, Alexander's a little bit more of a I'm going to go forward type of player, but he's no liability against the run. He's not Alfred Collins, but he's no liability against the run. So you can put him into this defense. He is going to fit with what Shane Bowen wants to do and some. So I would sign up for this, and the Giants need a player like this. Is something we've been talking about for quite a while. I think he'd be a really good fit.
Yeah, it's interesting because we're going to talk through 3 D tackles today, or interior defensive linemen today. And we've talked about throughout the process. It's a lot of a pick your poison kind of thing because there are these gap shooter types. And I think Darius Alexander can actually play multiple roles on the defense because of what you talked about, his frame, his length, and things like that. And he had a 90.3 defensive run grade, again, over the last 2 seasons. But again, this is at a lower level competition at Toledo, just to keep in mind. It's very important.
This is what I have in my notes about him. Has a gravitational pull around him as a run defender. So he finds ways to corral running backs when engaged in a block. Again, a lot of this did happen at Toledo, but at the same time, Senior Bowl practices, he was dominant. He was one of the best defensive linemen down there as a Toledo member.
And that's key because he's going against guys in the draft who are playing from bigger Power 5 schools. And you're hoping that's like the barometer of the competition he might face at the NFL level. I always find that a little odd, though, with the Senior Bowl, Nick. I know there's a lot of people put a lot of weight on it. But yes, they're the best kind of college, but there's a lot of like junior and just like, and now they're allowing juniors, but there's a lot of people who just don't play in the Senior Bowl and don't practice. Like they're too good to really play, or they drop out. I saw that a lot with some of these guys. Like he was committed to the Senior Bowl and he dropped out like during the days before the week. So it is what it is on that front. But I do think he could play in multiple spots. I do think he could end up being a plus run defender in addition to what he is. But this is the idea that we have to keep asking ourselves, and we'll find out soon in a week from now, Nick. Like, are there less than that? Sorry, when this drops, are they going for that Shane Bowen gap shooting 3-tech type D tackle to really help their pass rush even more, despite maybe drafting Abdul Carter at 3, just really going head first in that? Or are they looking for, and we'll talk about one prospect like that today, that run stopping defensive tackle who can 2-gap, who can just stack and shed and just destroy run games?
I think we should bring Alfred Collins from Texas into this conversation right now with Darius Alexander for the exact question that you just posed. Now, the thing is, Darius Alexander has run defensive skill to him, whereas Alfred Collins, there's really not a lot of pass rushing upside with Alfred Collins. He's big. He's a little stiff. He can anchor down. He could be that fire hydrant plus. I think there's just so much upside with a player like Alfred Collins to be one of the more dominant run defenders in the National Football League, being 330 pounds at 6'5". And also, I don't want to say he is a technician with his hands because I don't necessarily believe that. I think he's still a little bit raw with elements of his game. That's Alfred Collins that I'm talking about right now. But holy shit, dude, he just understands how to separate when he has to separate and how to leverage multiple gaps. Texas would put him as a nose, and they would have people just as 5 techniques in like 3rd and 6 situations where it still could be a running situation if you're presenting bubbles on the B gaps and parts and sometimes the A gap, depending on the shade that Collins was occupying. But they just trusted Collins' run defense and his ability to actually make those plays. And he was sensational. But the argument between Darius Alexander and Alfred Collins, I think Alexander gives you run defense upside with significant more juice as a pass rusher, whereas Collins is just, hey, I'm this big mountain of a guy. You could put me right in the center, and I'm going to be that defensive stalwart against the run that you need to shut down opposing rushing attacks. But what am I getting as a pass rusher from an Alfred Collins? That's my big thing. And that's one of the reasons why I might lean towards Darius Alexander, even though I love the fact that what Alfred Collins could offer this defense. And I think it's very necessary. But I can go back and forth on this. I wanted to get your thoughts, though.
Well, yeah. So first of all, we're talking about Alfred Collins, the Texans interior defensive lineman who the Giants also brought in for a top 30 visit, and Darius Alexander, the Toledo defensive lineman. When it comes to what you're discussing upside, I first want to make this clear, Nick, and I'll explain why in a minute. I think Alexander, if the Giants want him, it's 34. I think Collins is in play at 65. I really do believe that based on some of the things you said. That prototype defensive tackle slips in drafts. If they don't see upside as a pass rusher, these NFL GMs, there's a lot of times where they pigeonhole them into a certain type of player where we view value in that. We understand watching this team the last 3 years or so, how important that is to provide potentially elite level run defense upside. But a lot of NFL teams, I've seen that prototype slip in the draft that they don't believe in his pass rushing upside. So I want to say that to start. I think we're talking about two different picks. I may be wrong about that, but that's just my gauge on it. Collins, I think, will be in play at 65. Now, with that said, when it comes to Alexander, I see what you're saying. I definitely think there's more upside because of what we've discussed. Already a good run defender at that level, playing with Toledo, but way more pass rushing upside, not even remotely, I don't think, comparable to Collins. But when it comes to upside, that to me is essentially all it's been with Alexander. This dude had single-digit career sacks in 59 games despite playing at a lower level. That scares me a little bit, Nick. It really does. Like, I don't think that's something we should just scoff at or be like, whatever, to when it comes to Darius Alexander. You should be producing, I think, at a high level at that level of competition if you're a dominant player. So it's something that stands out to me. But when it comes to Alfred Collins and why I like him so much, he's one of my favorite values in the entire class, Nick, despite me not thinking there's pass rushing upside, just because over time, dude, I've come to realize the importance of these types of defensive tackles on your roster, like the A'Shawn Robinson types. And I think he could project as that type of player, an A'Shawn Robinson at the NFL level.
He's bigger than A'Shawn too.
And he's bigger, 6'5", 337 with crazy 34 and 5/8 inch arms. Here's another thing. Both these players, Nick, they're turning, he's turning 24 and Alexander's turning 25. They're older prospects. Yes. But what I like a lot most about Alfred Collins is I watched when you watch the cut-ups of him, like you could see it already with him. I don't think there's much projection when it comes to run defense. There was a rep in the Michigan game. He had like multiple reps where he's two-gapping and he's flashing he's taking away the first gap with the running back. He plants, he sees that Collins is taken away. He goes back to the other gap that Collins is responsible for. Collins is right there to stop the run play. And I saw that over and over. There was a stack and shed rep against Georgia on a short yardage play that they needed where he just destroyed the offensive lineman, put him on the ground, and then made the play in the run game by getting to the gap before the running back could get there. And that's over and over and over again because he has those long arms. He has the broad frame. He's not, like you said, he's not very like laterally agile. I don't think there's much pass rushing upside. It's not like, how Dave Gettleman said watching BJ Hill, like who was mostly a run defender at NC State, but he's like, I see he's able to flip his hips and have pass rushing upside. And he was right about that, Gettleman. Hill ended up being like a multi-sack guy at the NFL level, especially when we get to the Bengals. I don't necessarily see that. So it's kind of a little bit of a, I guess, capped upside to taking a player like this, which is why I think you wait and see if he's on the board at 65, where I think he will be. But man, when you watch him in the run game, and it's not just that, like he had 6 batted passes in 2024 using that long frame, those long arms that we just discussed. 3 of those led to interceptions. And I think a lot of those.
As well.
What'd you say?
Blocked a field goal too.
Blocked a field goal as well with those long arms. Like we're talking about somebody who's going to get up and bat these passes from these guys like Shedeur Sanders and all these quarterbacks who have a lot of batted passes on their profile because they're shorter. And we have a lot of short quarterback. Caleb short. Now Shedeur's coming into the NFL. We're getting a lot of these shorter quarterbacks coming up. I think he'll be a menace in that. What'd you say?
Hurts and Kyler too.
And Hurts is in the division, right? So these quarterbacks like that could struggle. And he can, and a lot of these plays, I went back and watched all 6 of those batted passes. They're like really, even though he's not a very laterally agile athlete, they're athletic plays. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Maybe it's coordination, whatever it may be, but like he's in his pass rush movies, has his hands engaged, and he gets them up really fast to bat the pass. I think that's a weapon, a part of his game that should be discussed. I also like that, like, look, he wasn't really a starter for Texas until last year, but that's not his fault. He played behind 2 unbelievable interior defensive line prospects who were both drafted highly to the NFL. So I feel like there's almost a little bit of upside there too. And that plays a little bit into his age. I don't know necessarily, again, if you take him at 65, even though he's one of my favorite values, Nick, it's not like we're getting like a star breakout player. I don't think this is the next Dexter Lawrence or even BJ Hill from the pass rushing side, but we're getting a locked in guy to help us on run defense. And now you have a front of Dexter Lawrence, him, potentially Abdul Carter and Brian Burns, whatever it may be. Like, there's a lot of upside there.
These are the important bricks that form successful mansions that consistently compete for Super Bowls. If these houses are competing for Super Bowls, right? Like, again, like these are the types of, like Fred Robbins, right? I'm not comparing their skill set, but those types of players where it's like, when you look at that 2007 New York Giants defense, Fred Robbins is not the first name that comes up, but then you remember, you're like, holy shit, Fred Robbins made this play, and you start to remember, like, man, that guy was really valuable. Was he Barry Cofield. Was he Michael Strahan, Justin Tucker, Usi Umenyiora? No, but he still had a very valuable role. That's what an Alfred Collins would be. I think Darius Alexander, again in Toledo, he has more upside, right? Like, he could be maybe a difference-making type of player because he can come up with that 3rd and 6, that 3rd and 8 sack and be like, oh shit, he took advantage of his one-on-one situation. But I understand like where the reservation lies. He had 3 years at Toledo where he didn't really do anything. Yeah. And then he broke out as a senior. And then his 5th year, that COVID eligible year or whatever it was, he ends up playing very well again. But he was the focal point of every offense, and every offense would just try to get 4 hands on him. And that's why I think the sack numbers were down. But at the NFL level, he's not going to deal with that at all. He's going to deal with one-on-ones. Absolutely. All the time as a pass rusher. So I'd be fine with either of these players. I'm not saying, like, I would love Alfred Collins on the Giants. There's some defensive linemen I think the Giants could get on day 3 because they tested poorly, who could fill a role similar to an Alfred Collins, where it's not as much pass rusher, but a solid run defender. But it wouldn't be to the level of an Alfred Collins. Whereas I think Alfred Collins could be, because I think it's hard to be a Pro Bowl type player when you're not getting the sack numbers on the defensive line. But if you could just go in there and just be that freaking anchor next to Dexter Lawrence, hey, sign me up for that. We need these linebackers to not just be overburdened with responsibility when Shane Bowen wants to run quarters, when Shane Bowen wants to put those 2 safeties back deep. And I think the presence of this kind of player, Alfred Collins specifically, is going to allow the Giants to play whatever type of too high shell they need to be -1 in the box and it not be a complete liability, because the strength of the defense lies in those front 4, if we're doing that 4-man even front. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Look, we all love to work out. The summer's coming around. You want to look good in your bathing suit. But in order to enhance your workout, you want to go and use MitoPure from Timeline. This is a great product. When I started using it, it makes me feel stronger, gives me more energy. I recover quicker. I'm in my 30s. I still have the energy to work out. And if you want that energy, you really should give Timeline's MitoPure a shot and work it into your routine. The great year of 2025 is your year to be the best, most energized, most revitalized you. MitoPure promotes cellular renewal and mitochondrial health to address common signs of aging at the root. MitoPure is the research-backed innovation that unlocks your fullest potential. Timeline is offering 10% off your order of MitoPure right now. So go to timeline.com/banter. It's timeline.com/banter. That's TIMELINE.
I really like how you broke this down, Nick, with the foundation pieces of a Super Bowl or any kind of championship winning roster. Let's just call it right now. We just want to be a winning roster, because it's really important to have those pieces. And that's why I think he's in play at 65 and not 34. And I think he might be there at 65 because of what you said. Like, NFL teams might look at it like, I can get a player like him later, but you can't get a player who's 6'5", 337 with that kind of long arms, that frame, and the film he has already in the run game. Like, you can get somebody who can kind of fill that role, you think can fill that role, may be able to at some point. He can fill that role right away for you. And yeah, that's probably a role, Nick, that comes off the field on 3rd downs. Like, I don't think he would play on obvious passing downs. They bring in Chapman or whoever. That's fine, dude. It's such an important role for early downs. Like, we've already seen how much it's killed us and not be able to stop the run on early downs in recent years.
The fact that Dan Schneider has a higher vertical jump and a longer broad jump than Alfred Collins, does that factor into this at all?
What is he, 28 vert?
26 vert.
Yeah. There's no pass, like, there's no lateral agility or explosion in his game, really. And And it is what it is. Like, again, that's why I don't think he should be in play at 34. Personally, I don't think at 34 you take a player like this, but I don't think NFL teams will view it either. I think at 65, it's a great spot to take a player like this for that more part-time role. All right, let's get to another player who the Giants brought in, a very different player from Alfred Collins, maybe more along the lines of Darius Alexander, and it's Omar Norman-Lott. I would call him kind of more of maybe even a little bit different than an Alexander, more of that quick gap shooting 3-tech. Look, he only averaged, this is the crazy part, Nick. He only averaged 17 snaps per game last season, but the production is off the chart. So it kind of comes down to like, what are you basing? Like, are you taking this production seriously? 12.6% pass rush win rate, 18.9% win percentage. These are all top numbers. His run defense was also very strong from a run stop percentage standpoint.
All 12 snaps that he had
on all 17 snaps a game, right? That he had. And like, that's the thing. These rate stats, they're somewhat important, but they're less important when you're only playing 17 snaps a game. Obviously, you're more rested. Obviously, it's easier to rack up stats. But at the same time, you've watched him. I've watched him. He is freaking fast. He is quick off that snap. And sometimes it's too quick. Like he draws the offsides when he doesn't need to. I think that happened 3 times. But other times you'll see him quickly come off the snap, bend and dip around that guard and just get through him with that. And it looks like that guard has no chance. 11 1/8 inch wingspan is crazy. I saw that. 10 3/4 inch hand size, massive hands, massive wingspan, 9.5 sacks over the last 2 seasons, despite not having a lot of snaps. I think he plays low to the ground, low center of gravity, and just kind of dips and get under with that quick first step. He, to me, maybe even has, in my mind, at least from watching the two, and I could be wrong about this, as much pass rushing upside as Darius Alexander, maybe hasn't have the same kind of run defense upside. 33.3% missed tackle percentage is rough for a defensive tackle and scary for Giants fans who have watched us miss a lot of tackles. What are your thoughts on Omar Norman-Lott, the Tennessee interior defender?
Well, again, this is a player who only played over 300 snaps once through 5 seasons. He was at Tennessee for the last 2 years, Arizona State the previous 3, and he only played over 300 snaps in 2021. So this guy doesn't earn a huge snap share, and it's not necessarily reflective of his lack of skills. It's just he was buried in a deep rotation with the Tennessee Volunteers. He didn't start, but that didn't really matter because, again, they'll play 25 snaps, 17 snaps. He had 86 run defending snaps this past year. And the previous year, he had 86 as well, the same exact number. In the year prior to that, it was 78. So this is somebody we haven't seen play a full complement to run defending snaps. So it's a little bit of an unknown situation if he's going to, how he will translate at the NFL level against better competition when it comes to playing run defense. But if we want to focus on what he is great at, and that is that just quickness off the snap, ability to stay low, and then ability to use those massive hands to his advantage to create separation and be a disruptor and be a penetrator and get into the backfield to sack the quarterback. Now, these past 2 years, he had 10 sacks combined. Those last 2 years at Tennessee, those only 2 years at Tennessee, he had 27 pressures last year in 2024, 16 in the previous year. So there's not a lot of production. You're relying on those per snap numbers, those numbers where it's like his pass, same with James Pierce Jr., his teammate in college, the pass rush win rate and the percentages of how many times this guy's rushed the passer and how many times he's pressured the passer, those are all high. But it's not like he's doing it consistently like a lot of these other players who are playing 900 snaps. So you got to weigh that in, and then you just got to factor in how do you evaluate him and when you're going through his tape to see how much is he winning, how refined is he. I wouldn't say he's the most refined player right now, but if you need somebody who is going to get in there, who is going to give all his effort, who is going to have pass rushing moves, and who could be, again, a penetrator, 3 technique. I think that's really what Omar Norman-Lott is, and this guy fits that bill. And as we said with Darius Alexander, something that the Giants are probably looking for, something that Shane Bowen could use in this defense.
More of a in 65 range for me. How about you, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, he's 291 pounds. No, I don't want him at 34 either. I mean, he might not be there at 65, but it's just hard to say. A team with a defined plan for him, it could work out. But for me, he's 291 pounds with the type of resume that he has. It's a very odd resume going into
very
the
odd
NFL.
resume.
And it might not be his fault. Again, this is a Tennessee thing, and this is something that a lot of Tennessee players look. These Tennessee offensive players coming to the NFL, and it's like, whoa, what is wrong with them? And now this is actually happening with the defense. What the hell are you doing, Josh Heupel? Right? Yeah. Like, why am I a recruit who wants to go to Tennessee when you have these incomplete profiles like this? But
yeah, I completely agree with you.
He definitely has the upside to be a good football player, though.
I can see him matched up against some of these people who, some of these players that NFL teams try to make guard, like Evan Neal, let's say, and just absolutely shit canning Evan Neal all game. Like Evan Neal cannot get low enough to stop this guy as a pass rusher. I don't think at all if he's lined up at guard. Now, maybe I'll have some help from different offensive linemen, but that's where I think he'll really be a big advantage. More of a situational pass rusher is how I see him overall in the NFL level. We'll see what happens. And just one quick note, I actually have this not sourced, so I actually don't think Omar Norman-Lott was a top 30 visit. I saw it, but it does not confirm, so he may not be. But just
I did not have that in my notes.
Yeah, I think just a bonus player we're talking about today. So just keep that in mind. You got a bonus player. Now let's talk about a player who has been confirmed for a top 30 visit. It's another guy. Look, it's not going to be every player we go over. I'm not a huge Darius Alexander guy, but I am a big Collins guy, Alfred Collins, and this is another guy. I really like his profile, and this one I see like big time potential upside if it ever clicks for him as a 3-down player with pass rushing juice as well. And it's Joshua Farmer, the defensive tackle, interior defensive lineman from Florida State. I'm going to let you start with Farmer, and then I'm going to get into some of the things I really like about Farmer's projection to the NFL level.
What do you really like about the projection? I'm curious as I pull up the notes on Joshua Farmer.
So with Farmer, for me, I think he's just not a complete player yet, and I think he has so much, like his game, it feels like, let's try to put a percentage on, like 40%. If it maxes out at 100% of what he could be, I feel like he's only 40% of the player he could be right now. Like he came to Florida at 255 pounds. He's 305 now. I still think he's kind of getting used to his weight and his new like body type. And there are moments where he looks awesome. And then there's moments where he just disappears for stretches. That to me screams a player who could get better at the next level. But those moments where he's awesome. I mean, when he was lined up just as a 3-tech last year, Nick, when they used him a lot in a lot of different spots on that front because they needed him. But when he was lined up just as a 3-tech last year, he had a 12% pressure rate, which is really, really high. And he was one of 5 in interior defensive linemen in the entire ACC with 18 defensive run stops and 25 plus pressures, 18 plus run stops, 25 plus pressures. So I think he's long. I think he's powerful. I think he does all different things. And this is something I've been thinking about looking at these guys they brought in on interior defensive line. A lot of them, Nick, are long arms, good frame, like ton of knockback. Remember what Andre Patterson said when he drafted Jordan Riley a few years ago? What stood out to him? He didn't really have good tape. What stood out to him? And they didn't say he got good tape. We knew that. It's like he has that knockback ability. He has that big frame, long arms, and reach. And that's something that all these guys they really brought in have. I think it's something the Giants look for on the interior defensive line. He has that as well. I just think this is the type of player who 2-time ACC All-Academic. I actually heard him speak. I would listen to an interview. I liked him a lot. He lost his mother at a young age, was raised by his grandmother, and discussed like how important school is to him. He was all academic there. Captain in 2024. I like that as well. His father died to his mother when he was 11, so really had a different lifestyle than most people. But I just think that he has a lot of untapped potential.
Untapped potential is probably the best way to frame Joshua Farmer, who played on this kind of mess of a defense at Florida State last year. But big hands, very long, as you said. I just really like that frame. It's completely maxed out. It seems like just very thick extremities, heavy pop in his hands, good power at the point of attack, a good overall run defender, and a solid above average overall pass rusher. But I still think there's more to Joshua Farmer, as you were saying, right? And this is also somebody wins with effort and power. Don't think he really has a lot of finesse or a lot of bend to his game as a pass rusher right now. But the fact that he's winning with effort, he has that drive. If you can refine the technique, then the fact that he has that effort and that raw base of power, you might find somebody who can employ, forklift moves, get underneath, use his low leverage to bull rush players, something that you did see at college, but maybe not necessarily enough. And as a run defender, you can probably gap and a half this guy if you teach him just to be disciplined, in place, trust his eyes, trust his instincts, and put that next to Dexter Lawrence. Again, like a lot of these guys we're talking about, I think that could be a win for the New York Giants. But still, Andre Patterson getting with Joshua Farmer, Andre Patterson getting with any of these guys. That's where my mind goes. Because I don't think we've seen the best from this player yet. And as you already said, and I'm glad you brought it up, as somebody who started very small, has grown into his body, and he's still learning all the tools that he has. And the head that this kid has on his shoulders to me, at least, it suggests that that toolbox could be very, very wide, right? Very wide toolbox.
I liked his pop, his knockback. I liked his motor watching him. There was a rep against North Carolina I saw where he splits a double team and just blows up a Hampton run on his own. So there's just those like high-end moments with him. Obviously, he'd have to refine his game. He's somebody I think is more in play at 65, potentially even 99, but more than likely, given his upside and how teams draft, I think, and the fact that I don't think they believe that he's fully there yet as a player and is developing, probably have to get him at 65 if you're the Giants. Maybe 99, though. All right, let's move on to another player here. This is a really interesting player that I want to get your take on because I have no idea where you stand on him, but it's kind of insane. Colin Oliver out of Oklahoma State. It would be just like Josiah Stewart in the sense that you'd have to be betting on an outlier. He is 6'1" it's a weird system there. That system they play, it's like a 3-3-5. He's kind of like in wide 9 edge. I don't really know what role that is. You would know better than me, Nick, but production out of that system is insane. He had 11.5 sacks, Colin Oliver, as a freshman. He led his team in sacks all 3 years, would have done it last year. He had 2 sacks and 14 pressures in just 2 games, 46 pass rushing snaps, 2 sacks, 14 pressures, and then he got injured last year. But other than that, he probably leads his team in sacks for 4 straight years. Just an absolute explosive athlete with a 4.56 40-yard dash at 6'2", 240. That's insane level speed. And listen to this stat. I thought this was interesting. Most sacks by a freshman ever in college football history. Will Anderson's 1, of course. Greg Rousseau is up there. Josiah Stewart is 3rd. Colin Oliver's 5th on that list. Will McDonald, then Colin Oliver with 11.5, the same amount of Myles Garrett had as a freshman. He had 24 bench press reps. He is not a weak player. I just think he's not great as a run defender. And then it's really just this stat that stands out to me because you see it when you watch his tape and you see him screaming off that edge. 157, 10-yard split at 240 pounds. What the hell? How is that even humanly possible? And he is like a blink going downhill. 40.5 tackles for loss in 43 games because that's what he does. He rushes, he splits into that backfield and tries to make plays. What do you think of this kind of prospect?
Oh man, it pains me because I know players like this tend to fall, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
If Joe Schoen actually lives up to the I'm going to draft outliers label that we assigned to him mostly because of that 2022 draft class, right? But it pains me because this is a good football player who is being held back by his measurables. Look, he's thick, right? 6'2", 240, muscular arms, muscular build, looks good in a uniform. Sub 31-inch arms as an edge rusher is tough. Oof. It's just tough to overcome. 30 3/4-inch arms with 9.5 hands. The hands aren't that big of a deal, but that arm length, you can't really dictate as well when you're going up against an offensive tackle who is 35-inch arms, 34-inch arms, right? Like you're conceding so much space when you do not have 32-plus-inch arms as an edge rusher, and teams will just remove you from their board. But with that said, holy shit, I loved watching Colin Oliver, man, because this guy is very good. Short area movement skills and quickness. He has the ghost move. He has a lot of bend to him, can win high side, can also convert speed to power, good low nature to him. When he keeps those pads low, it can mitigate the long arms of the offensive tackles. But still, as a run defender, it's tough to lock out and stack and shed when you're conceding 5 inches in arm length. It just is. You can't really play the peekaboo game and get around the offensive tackle to see exactly what is going on. So he's going to have to rely on that short area quickness and the lateral movement skills to avoid blocks. And that gets you out of position, and it could infringe upon the continuity of the defense. So it's tough, man. Like, is this going to be a situational pass rusher you're going to bring in?
Yes.
I think he could thrive in that role because he had 134 pressures. He was I think the Big 12 defensive play or freshman defensive player back in 2021, just wildly productive. Similar to Josiah Stewart, I don't want to count him out just because of these measurables, but this is a late day 3 pick that we're talking about. And I would roll the dice on that because he has that ability to win in a variety of ways. Just, I don't know if you could trust him as a run defender because of the poor length and because of the poor height.
Yeah, you nailed that. And I think when you said that, just to be clear, I know this is what you meant, but just so our listeners know, when you said similar to Josiah Stewart, you meant in the outlier sense. We both agree Josiah Stewart is a much more physical player with much higher run defending upside. Josiah Stewart, we believe, could be a multi-down player for the Giants. This player, Colin Oliver, who you would definitely take on day 3, no earlier, I don't think, is definitely the situational pass rusher. But there's value in that, having that on your team, especially if they don't draft Abdul Carter, like just having that guy screaming off the edge on passing downs.
Of course. And look, the guy was wildly productive as a run defender,
Right.
too.
Yeah,
And
somehow.
he's taken snaps at linebacker, too. But, well, it's just he understood, like, first off, he's smart. He understands how to avoid contact because he stays low and he has that type of bend. I just don't know how translatable that is against the or to the NFL level. But with that said, you could bring him in. He could just be that. His floor is a situational pass rusher.
Right.
And you can see if he can work his way into earning some snaps out there, because he's not going to. No one's going to put multiple blockers on him, right? Like he's only going to have to focus on one-on-one situations, which he thrived defeating at the college level.
Yeah. Colin Oliver, linebacker at Oklahoma State, could help you on special teams, I think, as well, if he's willing to do that at the next level. Also, a player who, reminds me of somewhat who's actually found a way to be more of an not every down player, but multi-down player rather than just a situational pass rusher. He's not this player, and does not have the edge bend that this player had or the pass rushing upside. But Nick Benito is a player who really surprised a lot of people at the NFL level. A lot of people just viewed him as no matter what, a situational pass rusher. And he's done a lot there. And has been a really good draft pick. So not the same player, but somebody who I'm interested in, Colin Oliver at day 3. Why not bet on that kind of trait with a late round pick? All right, here's another player we're going to get to. The Giants have brought in for a top 30 visit. It's Jaylen Reed, the defensive back out of Penn State. So here's some interesting notes on Jaylen Reed. He led the Penn State defense last year in tackles and interceptions. That is big time stuff right there, production wise, for a really good defense. One of the better defenses in college football. 5'11", 212, ran a 4.49, maybe the best blitzing safety in the entire class, at least from a production standpoint. He certainly was. He led all qualified safeties with a 27% pass rush win rate and a 90.9 PFF pass rushing grade last year from the safety position. Lines up in a variety of alignments, can play over it, kind of in that, in the sense of like what the Giants have brought in the past with players who can play all over the defense from the safety position. Definitely a player who surprised some people, I think, with really good 10 and 20 yard splits, but you could see it on the tape with his quickness and his ability to kind of click and close downhill. What are your thoughts on Jaylen Reed, and where would you be interested in maybe considering him for the Giants?
Early day 3, I like Jaylen Reed. And honestly, dude, I think you would like him a lot too. He's a Dan Schneider type of safety. I wish he was a little bit more sure as a tackler, but if you watch the end of the Indiana game, the Illinois game, this dude is just closing out as a blitzer, right? Like, you brought up his blitzing ability. Timing wise, understanding how to undercut blocks and where exactly to go to take the correct path right into the pocket. He thrived in that role. He played from depth often as a middle of the field, close single high safety. I wouldn't say he's the most rangy player, but he has sufficient range to specifically play a 2 high shell, which is what Shane Bowen runs a lot of cover 4. I do trust his eyes as well, but it's really I know that the tackling, he missed a lot of tackles, but he's physical, man. He's physical around the line of scrimmage. He wants to hit. He's good at hitting. He can fit the run pretty well and come up with these big tackles. He had a 14.5 missed tackle percentage, 14.9 throughout his college career, 14.5 in 2024, and 16 missed tackles. But he had so many tackles in general that it did bring it down. It's not in the 20s, 27 stops near the line of scrimmage. And I just want smart, tough, and dependable. Bring up the Joe Shane, the good old Joe Shane line right there. Smart, tough, and defendable players, but people who are really smart, especially from the safety position. This guy would be the third safety behind Javon Holland and Tyler Nubin, and he offers something a little bit different, and more of a sub-package player. You could put him as a money linebacker if you need to, and I think he would be solid in that role, especially with the blitzing component that he offers. You get that on day 3. I think it's worth it, and I think if you give this guy's a film, an extensive watch, you would end up appreciating what he can do as a safety. And if you watch the Penn State Wisconsin game in 2024, you'll also know what I'm talking about with that pick 6 he had.
Yeah, I got to watch some more games of Reed. I've seen cut-ups of him. That's kind of what I did to get going for this type of pod, and I do like him. I will say this, just to add to this. He was a captain for 6 games last year at Penn State. That to me is important, especially on a defense that featured so much NFL talent. He was high school teammates, Nick, with Sauce Gardner, and he credits Gardner for kind of building him up and becoming the player defensive back that he is, for whatever that's worth as well. I think those are 2 interesting notes on him. But I think overall, safety is actually a low-key bigger need than people think for the Giants. And I say that low-key because it's not a high need. We just signed Holland. We have Newman.
No.
But think about all the Shane Bowen defenses that succeeded in Tennessee and here. There were 3 safety looks. A lot of NFL defenses today want to put out a 3 safety look at times, and we don't really have a third safety we can trust right now. And that's why it's more of a need than people think. Like, you could say Dane Belt, you could say these players, but like, I don't know if you could put them on the field. They haven't proven yet that you can. Put in Jaylen Reed on specific downs like you talked about, Nick, and he's adding something to your defense. He is not – they brought in 2 safeties. He's not my favorite of the safeties they brought in. We're going to talk about that one last, and I really like that kid. But I see why you like him, and they're similar in the idea that they're screaming on the field. They're playing with their hair on fire at all times, which you got to love as somebody who evaluates these players. Like, you love the players who play with that kind of effort and motor and speed and click and close downhill. And fact that he was a captain and, again, led his team in tackles and interceptions last year, that's big-time production from Jaylen Reed. I think the range you said, day 3, it has to be with that maybe that first pick in round 4. I think he'll probably be off the board by 155, but at 105, definitely somebody that I'm interested in as well. Let's talk about another player here that they brought in, Corey Black, the corner out of Oklahoma State, 6 foot, 192. 4.35 40-yard dash. Alert, alert, alert. This is why teams are bringing him in for top 30s. The guy ran a 4.35 with a 39-inch vertical. Also, alert, alert. Now he's showing deep speed to play the deep half and the ability to leap and jump and bat the ball out, at least from an athletic testing standpoint. That's what that says. How about the production? Well, 4 interceptions, 29 passes defensed over his career. In high school, he set records with the 4x400 relay, the long jump, 24 inches, the triple jump. So clearly just an absolute beast from an athletic standpoint, both speed and leaping ability. He's tall, he's long. He has a lot of the things that you want. He started 38 games, but he's also a day 3 projection. So maybe you can get into why he may not be such a great projection despite having all the athletic traits.
Well, I mean, Oklahoma State's defense wasn't the most squared away defense. I think they allowed over 5. Yeah, I know, but the Giants are here looking at a bunch of Oklahoma State defenders. But no, I do like the edge rusher we just went over. And Corey Black's a good day 3 option as well. Linear speed, right? A ton of linear speed. I think when you look at him as an athlete, he's a plus athlete, but I don't see somebody who is necessarily overly fluid. I do see someone who's smart. I see somebody who I trusted his eyes when they were in zone coverage, when he was in zone coverage, especially when there were adjacent routes. I think his overall feel for the game was solid. Man coverage, adequate, right? Sufficient man coverage athlete, but some speedy receivers can get up into his toes a little bit and double moves. Like if you watch him against Jack Besh and TCU, double moves and these refined route runners, they can give him issues. I think him overall is he has an aggressive nature to him. Like he wants to undercut routes, like not Marcus Peters level, but similar. So those crafty route runners can get him into a bind to where they want to force him to try to jump a route, but then, it's a double move and now you're out of position. And I don't believe Corey Black, despite the fact that he has a 4.35 speed, has the type of recovery skills to get himself back into phase if he gets himself out of position. Pre to post snap, he is in good leverage. Like he understands, it's on the far hash. I'm going to take that inside leverage, smooth back pedal, a little bit high, but smooth back pedal, and then uses the sideline well. But I don't think his athletic ability is as great as that 40-yard time would suggest. I think the speed is there, right? I think he does have speed, but you need to be fluid. You need to be able to change direction. I don't think it's a terrible trait, but I think that's one of the reasons why we're seeing a player who wasn't invited to the combine. But overall, man, I want somebody who's going to be a special teamer. I want somebody who's disruptive. I want someone who's physical against the run, which Corey Black is, who's not shy to come up and make these wrap-up tackles in open space, which Corey Black does. I think he's good around the line of scrimmage, diagnosing screens and plays and coming forward. Solid click and close, but not necessarily the athlete that 40-yard dash would suggest.
And maybe that's why they brought him in, by the way, Nick, right? Like the Giants, probably top 30 visits could just be, wow, this guy was 4.35 with 39-inch vertical. We don't see it on the tape. What are we missing? Boom, they bring him in. They find out if they are missing something or if they're not. And sometimes that answer could be, no, we're not missing anything on this player and we're not interested in this player. So just because they bring him in for top 30s doesn't mean they're definitely interested in drafting the player. I want to make that clear. But we're going to get to the final player that has been reportedly brought in for a top 30 visit. It is he's just from catching up on him, watching his cut up last night and his whole profile, Nick, he's quickly becoming a my guy for me. And I think if the Giants want him, Nick, they're going to have to get him at 99 or 105. I don't think he's going to fall past that. I actually think his profile suggests he'll go higher than people think in the draft. It's a potential top 75 pick. And it's Andrew Mukuba. I don't know how to exactly pronounce his name. Andrew, I'm going to try this. Mukuba, the safety out of Texas. So here's his profile. We'll get into some of the stats and stuff after that. Here's his profile. He's 5'11". He showed up at the combine at 194, but his pro day at 186. And the big question for him is he way too undersized to play in the NFL level the way that he plays? Because just like we talked about with the Penn State safety, the Penn State defensive back Jaylen Reed, Mukuba plays with his hair on fire. He explodes downhill. He explodes, throws his body into contact, is really aggressive despite being maybe only 186. And he's a former slot nickel guy for Clemson. He transferred his last year from Clemson to Texas because a quote unquote, and this is one of my favorite quotes of the whole draft. I have to get this just because it was so good. It was from Dean Brugler. He said he felt like he wasn't being pushed enough in the Clemson defense and he wanted a bigger challenge. But at the same time, despite that comment that he made, Brett Venables, as I'm quoted saying, he's easy to coach, cold-blooded on the field. He's a self-starter and really ambitious. He's somebody, Nick, who was the middle child of 7 siblings, 4 brothers, 2 sisters, born and raised in Zimbabwe. And his family didn't have access to modern amenities, electricity, running water. At age 8, his parents, who were from the Congo, they moved to Austin, Texas. He's trying to learn English. He's trying to assimilate to culture in Texas, and then starts playing organized sports in 6th grade. When he starts playing football there. So I just feel like watching him, there's so much room to grow, but he was incredibly productive with Texas last year. Like, he comes over and he records 69 tackles. He leads the SEC with 5 interceptions, 7 passes defense. And I fall for these prospects a lot, Nick. I remember Ashton Davis out of Cal. I just loved his speed and his instincts in the deep half. That's what it is for me with Mukuba. When I watch him, I feel like he sees the deep half really well, and he could break on that. That was something I always loved about McKinney. We didn't get to see it a lot, except for the Patrick Graham years, but that ability to play from the deep half and then break on the football and either make a pass defense or an interception, just make a play, understanding space, understanding the angles, where to drive on the ball. I think he does a great job with that. I mean, there's also people love him as like that heat-seeking missile against the run. I mean, he's not a great tackler yet, maybe from a technique standpoint, but he is firing downhill in that alley. But I love him in pass coverage. That's where I think like that center fielder type, that natural center fielder. Only one season doing it, Nick, because again, he played nickel. He's kind of new to this position, but he looked freaking good in that Texas defense doing it. And I think he's a really exciting player.
That first Georgia game from 2024, holy shit, dude. He had 2 hits near the line of scrimmage, one against Gunnar Stockton, the quarterback who was in there, knocked his helmet off, and he got flagged for it. But I'm like, yo, that's a good hit, man. He uprooted him, dude.
At 185.
Yeah, at 185. And then the other hit, I don't know if it was ETN, but it was one of the Georgia running backs trying to get in the end zone. And you just see this dude fly and just nail him like right in the hips. And the running back went directly down. And then the running back just like kind of laid there for a little bit. I'm shocked that a 185-pound player packs this kind of punch. Yeah. It reminded me a little bit of Upton Stout. Upton Stout from Western Kentucky in this draft. Similar type of player where it's just an undersized. He's going to be like a safety. Is he a nickel defender? Is he a slot? Well, where's he going to play exactly? But plays bigger than his weight. So I love players like this as well. I watched a lot of Texas defense. I did not focus on this player, though. So I want to kind of circle back, watch more Texas defense, focus on him to give a more precise analysis of his skill set. But from everything that I saw watching Alfred Collins and the other defensive tackle, I did like seeing this guy fly around and absolutely annihilate opposing offensive players.
And to be fair, at 185 and obviously put on the fake 9 pounds for the combine, I think the show team's like, oh, I can do this. I can play at 200, even though he clearly can't because he didn't have first pro day. You can get, I've been fooled by these type of players. I mentioned Ashton Davis. Like Ashton Davis' career with the Jets, he's actually had some moments when he finally could play, but he's been injured a lot. And early in his career, he was injured all the time. When you're playing center field and you're playing with the recklessness that Mukuba plays with and some of these guys play with, you're going to it's going to be tough to stay on the field. And we'll see if that plays him at the NFL level. He's not someone I would want to use 65 on. He's not someone I would want to use 34 on. But if we get to pick 99 and 105, I'm interested in this type of player because I love the upside in my mind of what he can be as a center field kind of patroller. And yeah, we have Newman, we have Holland, but again, we have some of these, we're going to have some of these packages on defense, these sub packages where we have 3 safeties and maybe Newman is playing in a robber or around the line of scrimmage, or even if Holland coming down. And now you have this dude back in center field breaking on those deep and vertical intermediate routes, and just something that excites me a little bit.
Ooh, Dan gets a little excited
A
there.
little excited.
No, I'm right there with you though, bro. I love players who are just good football players. It's just I'm looking at the Giants right now. They do have a lot of needs. I'm all about bringing in good football players to help complement the roster. I don't think this is redundant to Drew Phillips, but I would be curious to see how the Giants would use his skill set, because I think he could operate around the line of scrimmage despite being the size that he is in certain third down and passing situations. And then as a safety, I love his eyes, dude. How many times was he from depth and he was able to read the routes in front of him? And you see, like watching from broadcast angle, you see the quarterback hit his back foot. It's like, oh, I got that crossing route right there. And he throws it. And then all you see is like a white jersey or an orange jersey just fly through the catch point and either intercept it, because he had 5 picks this past season, or knock it down, or just deliver a massive hit to the wide receiver who was attempting to catch the football. So yeah, I would support that, but it would have to be day 3. And a player like this could fall because of the weight.
Would you consider 99 to be day 3? That comp pick probably too. That's
but again, it really does depend on how this draft unfolds, who's available, and all that. But I do, again, I invite good football players to join this team. But looking at the secondary room, Cordell Flott is still in tow. Cordell Flott's still here, right? So it's bringing him in.
A lot of young talent.
A lot of young talent. Where exactly would he fit? Like, I don't know if he would get in.
Safety. I want to keep him in safety.
Big dime and dime packages, big nickel maybe. So you have 3 safeties, and then Dane Belton. It's like you're just the 4th guy. You're like Javarius Owens. Yeah. Like good luck finding the football field. I do like Belton, but again, Belton's going to be gone after this season more than likely. I do like Belton in those big dime packages, and when it is obvious passing, you just can't really put him out there against the run.
Right. And this guy you can potentially put out there against the run, just like the body type. But what really stood out is what you brought up at the end of that breakdown, which is the eyes and how he breaks on those routes. And that's only playing 1 year in that role. He did not play that role with Clemson. That to me is another sign of like boom, click, click, boom. I just like the way he's wired. I listened to him. I think he's going to be the guy who's going to be in first, out last, give you everything he's got, like do everything he can to become the player that he physically, athletically can be.
Just arm length, height.
Yeah, there are issues. The weight is the biggest issue. So because of that, he's a day 3 pick and not anybody you draft earlier. But Andrew Mukuba out of Texas, the last guy that we discussed here. And these were the Giants' top 30 visits on defense. Nick, we'll close out there. I will say one thing because it just popped across my feed. Andrew Berry, the Browns GM, just compared Travis Hunter to Shohei Ohtani. I think that is the death knell if you were hoping for Travis Hunter going to the Giants. If this dude who's picking 2 overall is comparing him to Shohei Ohtani, the best 2-way player in any sport, I think we might be looking at Abdul Carter or Shedeur Sanders for the Giants at 3, which some people will be more happy with. I just wanted to bring that up at the end of the show that I just saw that Ohtani comparison.
Honestly, I was already kind of leaning in that direction.
Yeah, me too.
Barry had a quote like 2 weeks ago about Travis Hunter that I was like, ooh, gosh, I guess this is...
He's the best player in the class by far, I think. And I like Carter a lot, but this is just, I mean, I tweeted about this today, Nick. Matt Harmon, who we talked about, we respect his analysis, compared him to prime OBJ. Nate Tice said he reminds him of prime Chad Ochocinco with just the movement and the footwork. I get that one too. And then I've said I see shades of Justin Jefferson. We're talking about like some of the most elite players in the game at wide receiver. People are studying this guy and seeing comparisons to. That's I still believe he's a better receiver than corner, but the corner, the reason people like him there, it's like the upside. What if he reaches his ceiling there? Then he shuts down half the field. So it is what it is. I'll be happy with him or Carter at this point. We'll see where the Giants go and which direction they kind of fall into. But that's it for today's podcast on Big Blue Banter. More coming. So you'll hear this over the weekend, I believe. We're recording this before that. But we're going to the next week's going to have some of our biggest content hits. We're going to have dueling mock drafts with Nick and I. That actually may be coming before this. So don't quote me on that. We're going to have maybe it's not.
Yeah, no, you're right.
It is. I think we decided yes every Friday. It's okay. We're going to have our My Guys podcast where we talk about our sleepers and our favorite players in the class that value. And maybe we might have time to do some fun stuff right before, like a final thoughts for the draft, things like that. our plan strategy going in. We'll see. We'll see how it goes, but we're really excited for this last stretch. And then we're really excited to break down the players. That's the best part. Once you know who they're actually taking and you could actually dive into like the cut-ups and the film of all those players. Now that I have this Thundercloud thing, I'm so pumped to be able to sort these plays the way I want to for the players the Giants draft. So very exciting times for Big Blue Banter. Please do us a favor. I didn't love on our last couple videos the view counts and the likes. We need help. We need you to hit the like button. We need you. Here's the thing. As we get to the draft next week, this page has to be juiced up. The algorithm has to be juiced up. Remember, I like to talk about juicing things up, Nick. Juice this page up. Hit the juice button. Hit the like. Leave a comment. Help us out. Juice it up, okay? I want max juice on this page. So that means like button and comments on every episode. You're listening now. It's all you got to do. It's free. Remember, I've done this before. I'll do it again. Use that hand, hover it over the mouse, and bang, you hit the like button. That's all that took. A comment, do whatever you want. That takes a little bit longer. I understand. Anyway, thank you so much for supporting us. Thank you so much for being there for us and listening to our content over and over. We got more to come. We're excited about it. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon.